Folks, anyone who watched my video from I think it was last week about the Revell Shuttle launch pad, I promised that once I started working on the crawler model I'd post an update, and I've got a fair bit done over the last few days because I'm off for the Easter break, so quite a lot of printing done. And so I thought I'd shoot this video and show you the progress, and probably a couple of videos for this, one of the parts that I'm going to show you now, and then another video of the thing built and painted, and as I said, this is what's been holding this project up, and now that I've got to this stage it looks like I can move on with the entire project and get the entire diorama finished. So let's have a look at the progress I've made. So as I mentioned in the previous video, the only sort of option open to me when I started this project a few years ago was this card model of the tractor. And you can see that it's got all these various pages, and they're all really nicely detailed, the drawings, but the nature of a card model is it is a little bit two-dimensional in places, and the original idea was I was going to use this as a template to make styrene parts, and then I come across the files for the 3D printed one, so I'm doing the bulk of it out of that, although I am still going to be using some styrene. Now the useful part of this is that the instructions that come with the 3D prints are pretty much text only. There's not much in the way of pictures, photographs, anything like that, drawings. So I'm going to be using this as a guide to what these parts actually look like in 3D. You can see here this has got all the structure of the sort of main body of the crawler, and you can see the track sections here. Now what I did, I checked the parts off, and let me just see if I can pull a little bit more light onto this. It does seem a little bit dim, that. These are quite dark prints though. So the original files for the crawler were 1/60th scale, which is like enormous. So I've reduced them down, and I had to scale them down by a factor of 41.67%. from 1/60th scale, which brings it down to 1/144th scale. So then when I place these parts over this drawing, they're pretty much on the money. There's a tiny fraction out there, but I don't think it's going to make much difference. And I've got no guarantee that these are actually perfectly to scale. But the length of these looks to be pretty much the length of those. So I'm happy with it's going to look in scale. It's certainly much better than the 1/200th thing that was supplied with the kit. So the other good thing about this is it's good color references. I mean, I've got photographs of the real thing, but this gives an indication of where a lot of the rust and stuff appears on this thing. So I'm going to be using this as a guide. So these parts themselves, I've used so far. I've used about a full bottle, which I think is a litre bottle of resin to print all the parts. I've got two printers running side by side. The second generation Elegoo Mars 2s. I think they're up to Mars 5 now, I think, so things have moved on a bit. and they don't actually support my printers anymore in terms of spare parts. But that's fine. I mean, they're working quite well. I've had no problem with them, and I've got a few build plates and spare resin tanks and things, so I can rotate things as I go along to speed things up. And I find that just by constantly rotating the prints literally within a couple of minutes of themselves, and while I'm cleaning one print up, the other one's starting, that it's the most efficient way to print all these parts. And so you can see these parts make up one of these, which is the sort of crawler track section. It's got little sort of access doors in the front here. The back of it's plain because that attaches to the main block that attaches the sort of, it's like the leg of the crawler. So they attach like that. The other one goes on the other side like so, and so obviously these are made by sandwiching these parts together. They go sort of back to back, and then these parts fit on the top. Now, as with a lot of 3D prints, it's not like a standard kit where you've got location holes and there's pins and things line up and fit together. This is very much dependent on sort of flat edges meeting, and the other disadvantage is that the whole thing has to be glued together with CA glue, which you have to be quite adept at sort of tacking the thing together and then running a bead of glue along the sort of open edges and then prising them shut to get it to glue together. It'd be fantastic if regular Tamiya extra thin worked on this stuff, but it doesn't. So that's the only real disadvantage. The other thing is that obviously when these come off the print, they've got all the support structure attached to the back like small pins, and so these have had to be sanded. Now, because it's resin and it's basically toxic, I wet sand them. I have a tray with some wet and dry paper in, which is topped up with water over the top, and then these are sort of sanded flat like this to get the pin marks off the back, and then obviously all that slurry builds up in the water and you can dispose of that. So these parts have been going together, as I mentioned, gluing to these blocks here. These small parts here that look like barrels, they're actually the suspension springs, or I'm assuming there was springs inside them, that fit in here, and that was the suspension for the main arm. Now the main arms are made out of two, believe it or not, that's just two pieces glued together, which shows you the kind of complexity that you can get in these parts being 3D printed. You get detail on all sides, and this is basically just a bottom plate glued onto a top piece. There's a little bit of a seam here because I've only just glued these together, which I need to just clean up. And because I've scaled this down from the original parts, some of these parts are coming out very, very thin indeed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to back this with just a thin layer of styrene sheet cut to this size, and that'll just help stiffen the whole thing up, and it'll just give it a little bit of body, because obviously when this is all connected up, this is all going to be taking the weight of the MLP that I've built and then the shuttle on top. So I've got to make sure that it's going to be strong enough. But they're pretty rigid and quite strong as they are, these. So very little cleanup needed on these. What I tend to do with these larger pieces where they've got an awful lot of supports on them is that they come off the printer. I use the water-based resin now, which is easier to clean up. You don't need all that IPA to clean it up, and it's sort of low odor. It's not odorless, but it's a lot less of an odor than the old IPA-based stuff. So these are cleaned off, and then before I leave them to dry, to air dry, and then before I put them in the UV box to harden them, I pull all the supports and the pins off while they're still soft, and it makes cleanup a lot easier. I wouldn't tend to do that on very small parts, but on these, because these are quite large pieces, I get those off first and then give them a second rinse, let them dry off, and then I put them in the UV box to cure, and they normally have a couple of minutes each side on the turntable, and that cures them. So so that's that part. I've mentioned those parts there. I've actually assembled one of the track parts now. So this arm obviously connects to the main body of the crawler, and there's 4 of these, and you can see the suspension pieces there, and this is obviously all together. You can see that seam there still needs cleaning up. I'm going to clean that up and then stiffen it up a little bit. And there are some more details to go on this yet. There's lots of sort of gearboxes and things to go on the fronts of these. So these, when they're all completely together, they're quite chunky. There's lots of detail on these. There's cable trays. There's actually quite thick cables run over these and into the machine, which I'm going to replicate using some, depending on the scale, either some thin solder or maybe some copper wire. I'm going to get the whole thing together, and then it's going to be sprayed grey. Again, like the tower, the colour is very similar. It's like a very pale primer grey colour. So I think I'll get away with priming this and then going over it with a lighter shade just to sort of brighten it up a bit. And then obviously it's going to be quite heavily weathered, because when you look at the real thing, although it was obviously well maintained, because it's on the coast, and it's been used for many years. I think I'm not sure, but I think they had 4 of these crawlers, and they all date from the Apollo period. But then they were updated for the Shuttle era. But because they're on the coastline, they rusted quite quickly, so they look quite sort of maritime in appearance, with rust streaks everywhere. So I'll be adding all that to it as well. But as constructions go, that I'm really pleased with the way this has gone so far. Now, as far as the tracks go, here's a set of prints for the tracks. Now, this hasn't been cured yet. This is why this is so flexible still. I need to put it in the tank to cure. This I only just printed this about an hour ago, and I've rinsed it off, and then it's been just air drying just to get the water droplets off it. So this is ready to go in the curer, and then these break off quite easily, but each one has had to be individually sanded on the bottom to get rid of the pin marks. If I show you this box here, there's loads of these. I think in total I need about over 400 of these for the 8 sets of tracks, because there's 2 sets of tracks on each of these arms, so there's 8 full sets of tracks. Now these pieces here, it shows you how good this print is, because these have just been pushed together, and they're quite flexible. They will flex on the actual joint itself, but you can literally just push these together. Now the plan here is I'm going to build a spare one of these, and I'm going to assemble sets of these up like link and length, like you get on those Dragon tank kits, where there'll be a long stretch that will do the full length. I'm going to do some ones bent round to here. There'll be a piece going over the top and then another one bent round, and I can leave them in 4 pieces. These will all be spot sort of welded together with some CA glue, and then they can be painted and weathered and then finally just reattached to this when it's done. And they're going to be easy enough to attach to this, even though this has been assembled. I'll be able to get them on. So so at the moment I'm just busy printing more off. This is probably about just under half of what I need in there. So I've got several of these ready to go in the curing station, so they're going to be done in a minute. Just for something to do, really, you know, just a bit of a break, I actually printed some of the links. I upscaled them to 1/35th scale. I was just curious as to how big these tracks would be in 1/35th scale. Now, there's no way I could print this vehicle in 1/35th because my printer simply isn't big enough. And even with the largest printers that you can get, they'd struggle to do this. It'd probably have to be done in the filament type, you know, the PLA. And again, you have problems then because you get all those grain lines in it and that kind of thing. If you wanted this printing to say 1/35th scale, I don't really know why you'd go that big anyway. You'd be looking at like an industrial size resin printer. Now, interestingly, the college where I work does have an industrial sized resin printer. So it does make you wonder whether you'd actually get away with building this in a much larger scale. But as it comes, these are 1/35th scale. I was just curious as to what they'd look like. And when they're scaled up, they come with these linkage holes already molded. And all I've done there is I've inserted some short lengths of aluminium tubing, which was just the right diameter, and just put a little blob of glue on the end just to stop them sliding out, and that's fully articulated. So technically you could, if you made a bigger enough one of these, you could probably motorize it and have it, you know, maybe radio controlled or something. But these are pretty solid. You can see that the backs have been sanded where the supports were. Then you compare those to this, and there's, you know, the detail is the same. If you look at these much closer, I don't know whether it's going to pick my other hand up there, isn't it? Let's just see if I can get that to focus. Maybe. Try again. There you go. So you look at the detail on those with those little staggered slots in the tips of the tracks, and then you look at that and it's exactly the same because it's obviously the same part, just blown up on the printer. So that was just interesting to do. The main structure of this is made up of these parts. Now, this is, as you can see, this is quite flimsy. I've broken this one. And what I've decided to do with these, because these were reduced from 1 to 1/60th scale, as it's got smaller and smaller, these parts have become thinner and thinner, and this has kind of reached the kind of limit of this material, really. It's too thin. So what I'm going to do, these parts are thicker here, so I'm going to cut these sections out, and I'm going to replace the side pieces with some evergreen styrene, and that'll stiffen the whole thing up. Originally I was thinking of just gluing some styrene strip across the edge of this, but it's, I don't know if it'll show there, it's got some kinks in it, and I think that's just the nature of 3D printed, as you reduce things down and they go thinner, the parts become a little bit more unstable. So these parts in the center are fine, so I'm going to use those just with an outer sort of perimeter of styrene, and that'll make for a much stronger model. I mean, you can see these are a bit bendy. I mean, if this was styrene, you'd still be able to do that with that, but this is just way too thin. It's like a spring, really. So I'm looking at redoing those. There's some various other pieces. This is part of the side that you can see through. There's like walkways on the side of this, and then you can see the machinery behind it. And although this is a bit bendy, I'll be able to stiffen it up on the back with a couple of strips of styrene, and then that'll sort of hold that together. And there are actually more of these sort of girder looking parts that glue on the back to make it 3D. So there's that to do yet as well. The driver's cabs come in pieces like this. There's the outside of one of them with the doorway into the cab. They've come out quite well. There's a little bit of a curl on the back of this. I don't know what's caused that, because the print came out perfect, but for some reason this bottom edge was printed properly. However, you don't really see that when it's assembled, and I can just run a little strip of styrene along the bottom just to sort of beef it up a little bit and hide the edge. That's the roof of the cab, and that's actually got a printed mesh. Probably see my finger through the mesh there in that triangular piece there. That's got a printed mesh there. The floor is the opposite, or maybe that goes the other way up. No, it does go that way. So you can see the other part. It's got these sort of lightning holes in it, and this part is the actual cab here. So it all kind of fits together, kind of like that eventually when it all goes together. And it's got a window in the front, the seats inside it, it's got an internal wall. There's various other pieces. There's lots of these vents that are built into the main part. I don't think they're visible though once the MLP's on the top. These parts are all various tiny little bits that get glued on all over the thing. There's cable trays. I originally thought these were ladders, but they're actually cable trays, so they'll have, you know, copper or brass wire put in them to look like the cables. These are the gearboxes I mentioned. These fit in here. I'm not sure which way up they go. I think they go this way. So they go kind of like that, and there's another one, like an opposite hand one, that goes there. I think I might have that back to front, to be honest. Maybe it goes, oh sorry, no, it goes that way. So they go like that basically, and then there's a motor mounted on these. I did have it right the first time, actually. It's that way. So that goes like that, and there's a motor mounted on the top, and then there's cables run over the top here, and obviously the tracks are running past it as well. So that, again, there's quite a lot to do there. And there's all kinds of bits and bobs in here, and little gears and sort of little sort of air cleaners and things. And then these are they're described as the mufflers, and they're in two parts. I couldn't quite make them out initially, but they've been done as a top and bottom half like that, so they have to glue together. And obviously I'll have to clean the seam up along here, because there will be a seam there. To be honest, I mean, I could replace these I'll see how they come out. They could be replaced with just a piece of styrene that's been rounded off, because they are just an oblong. And I could replace this with some aluminium tubing, but I think, to be honest, when they're cleaned up, they're not sort of open to the outside. I think they form part of the underside, I think, so you're not really going to see much of them. And I think if they've been weathered and painted up and a bit of filler along the edge, they'll look quite good. So so there's those to do. These are part of the upper deck, and again you can see how that's mesh that's been printed on the just out of one piece of resin. They're quite flexible, these. The only downside to this, as much as I tried to attach the attachment points, the supports, to the mesh itself and not the openings, it's still come out with some of them blocked. However, this is pretty much invisible on the finished thing when it's underneath the MLP that's going to be carrying the shuttle. You won't see these anyway, so I'm still going to put them in, but it's unlikely you're going to see them. So in terms of just its relationship to the MLP, so obviously if you've got your MLP there, this is going to be under here somewhere. I'm not sure quite where it fits yet, because obviously once it's all together, there are some jack-in points that attach to this part, I think, that then attach to part of this. And I've also got some files for this, which I'm not going to use them to print an entire thing, but I am going to use them for the detail. So these go here somewhere, and there's some jacking points here, and this has legs that lower into place, that take the weight. In fact, I might be wrong there. I think this has sockets on, and the legs are on the pad, and they lift up and lift this off the crawler only by probably 6 inches or so that this can sort of return back to the garage sort of thing, and just leave this on the pad. So but given that this is going to be in motion, this is going to be underneath here somewhere. So you can see it's all to scale, and I'm really pleased how this has come out, because it's been a long time. I've been trying to sort this out in terms of how I could achieve the sort of finished diorama. As I said, the instructions for this, it really, I've printed them out, but it's just a parts list, and then there's a lot of this which is just, it's sort of telling you what parts do what, and it gives you an indication of what to do with them. There are some photos. There's a little sort of drawing there, but not much else. So it's really a combination of these written instructions, the photos, and the card model is probably going to be the most useful part. I'll decide on the actual, looking at this here, I'll move that out of the way. Where are we? One of these has the main structure on itself, I think. Well, I may be mistaken. This looks like detail parts. That's the top deck. No, these are all tracks. It may be on the other set of sheets that I have somewhere. Oh no, there it is there. So this shows a lot of the main structure, which will help when I come to set this whole thing up. But I think I may end up replacing some of the resin with styrene just purely to give it some strength, and I could probably get away with actually drilling through the bottom of this right the way through to here and putting a like a piece of brass tubing in or something like that that actually runs to the deck, because you're hardly going to see it once all this all the tracks and everything are in place, but it just give it 4 legs to sit on the base, and it just give it that extra support. So I may well do that, because I should be able to run a drill bit right down there, same diameter as that, and it'll surface perfectly in here, and then just insert a piece of brass rod right through the or rather brass tubing right through the center, and that'll give it the support it needs. So so there we are. So quite a lot of progress from a printing perspective. What you do find with these is that they do go together quite quickly, because a lot of what, if this was a styrene kit, a lot of this would be in multiple parts, and you know, something like this would probably be in about 7 or 8 parts, just this top section here, because you wouldn't get the detail unless it was slide molded. You wouldn't get all this detail on all sides. So there are distinct advantages to 3D printing. The beauty of it, of course, is if I make a mistake, I'll just print another one. I have actually printed some extra ones of these up. A couple of them came out a little bit flat on the end. In fact, that's one of them. It's got like a flat section on the end. I don't know why, but that's okay because I've got spares, so that they can be replaced. So about the only thing that's left to print for this now, apart from a couple more sheets of these, is the walkways for the sides, which are all gratings, and there's railings as well. Now I'm going to print the railings up, but I'm not entirely sure how good they're going to look when they come off the print. So I may in fact replace those with brass rod and solder some up maybe, but I'll have to have a look at that. I could use those as templates, but it is, everything on this, with it being 144 scale, everything is quite tiny, so I might get away with the resin ones, so we shall see. So as ever, if you've enjoyed this, then maybe subscribe, or at least like the video, and I'll be putting another installment of this up very soon, possibly with it assembled but not painted, and then doing another one with it painted up, and then I can start looking at finishing the MLP off and attaching this to the bottom of it, and I'm sort of a long way forward then of where I want to be with this diorama. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.